Hello, this is James over at the flying-guillotine.com, and flying-guillotine.com is a movie blog where I kind of cover Asian film directors. And kind of one of the projects that I've been working on is a project where I basically watch a bunch of movies with my friends, and today I'm joined by my friend Zach, and we've been watching the films by Bong Joon-ho, and we just watched the film Mother, which is his latest film, directed in 2009. What were your general thoughts on the film?
It was pretty intense. It had a very tight plotline. I thought it was just very just tight. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think just looking at Bong Joon-ho's films in detail, especially Memories of Murder, The Host, and this film. Like, just all the details are just very, very immaculately planned out.
Yeah, you see something earlier in the film and it plays out later and you're like, wow, I didn't really see that coming.
Yep.
Or the way that I didn't expect it to play out in that particular way. Or
Yeah, I totally agree with your opinion, and throughout the film, and I've seen the film 4 or 5 times at this point, I was still taking notes about stuff that I just thought was really, really interesting, details that kind of come back. I feel like it's definitely a film that you can watch and then watch again.
Yeah, I feel like if I saw it again, I'd notice different things.
Yeah, for sure. And so just to talk a little bit, before we get into too many specifics, we are going to spoil this film. This is not a review, it's a discussion, so we're going to spoil the shit out of this film, so please turn this off if you don't want to be spoiled and you want to watch the movie fresh, which I would recommend. And so I guess one of the most interesting kind of things that Bong Joon-ho does throughout his filmography is that he really plays with the audience's expectations. And this kind of happened in Memories of Murder and The Host, if you want to speak a little bit towards that.
Oh, right. The way he's sort of messing with genres where, in The Host, for example, you're expecting, a big scary monster that, is slowly investigated by one or two particular key members who are really suave and awesome at what they do, when really you see the monster in 10 minutes in.
Yep.
And the main protagonists are just guys and girls that are just kind of they have faults. They're just kind of stumbling around trying to do what they think is best, but it's by no means superhero, super awesome guy.
Yeah, absolutely. In The Host, I mean, the typical American or Hollywood Western way to do it would be, in any of these monster movies or these big adventures, super fantastic films, is to have the most gung-ho people possible, the best boxer in the world, and played by Tom Cruise or something like that.
Yeah.
Where they just kick a bunch of ass and just beat this monster. But instead, the family, as Bong Joon-ho himself describes it as, is a loser family.
He said that himself?
Yeah, he said that in the Host audio commentary. He's like, this is a loser family, and he likes those types of characters.
Wow, that's funny.
And so, I mean, I'm not sure if he's mistranslating a little bit, since English is obviously not his first language, but
I mean, his meaning comes through.
Yep. Yeah. I think in all of his films that really, really comes across, just the type of characters he likes. But in this film in particular, Mother, you'll see that it's not really the genre that he deviates from, kind of like The Host, which Zach spoke to a little bit. It's more playing with kind of the expectation from the Korean audience established by sheerly by casting those two main actors. For instance, the main actress is played by Kim Hye-ja, who is really well known for playing mother roles on kind of Korean television series, and she kind of started out as more of a romantic movie star when she was much younger, but she had kind of grown, and when a Korean audience sees this older woman on the screen, they automatically will associate her with a mother role. So I mean, that's one kind of thing that's implanted in the Korean audience's minds before they even get to know the character particularly well. And so the other actor is Won Bin, and you saw him in a recent film, right?
Yeah, in The Man from Nowhere,
yeah,
where he just goes around and beats the crap out of guys, basically.
Pretty much. I mean,
there's more to it than that.
Yeah, that's a very good movie too, and I would
liked it.
compare it to kind of the Korean version of Taken. And,
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a very fun movie. Definitely one to kick back with a bunch of dudes and drink a beer and just watch some badassness.
Yeah.
And so I know a little bit about Won Bin's background, and he kind of had his start in K-dramas, and he's a very, very well liked by the female Korean audience. He's a bit of a heartthrob, and then he really, really took off in a film that I personally really dislike called Taegukgi, which is kind of the Saving Private Ryan, but I find it to be very melodramatic. Not that Saving Private Ryan isn't, but I actually don't really like that film either. But but let's not get too much into my snobbish taste during this first episode. But it's a film that I don't particularly like, but established him as kind of like this very emotional Korean star, and just very well liked by both males and females. And then pretty much what happened is he was sent to the military as is required by the Korean government. So he was essentially out of commission for several years. Immediately after kind of his big box office hit. And so this is actually the first film he's done since then. And so you can kind of imagine the Korean audience's astonishment when they see him in this role, and he's playing a mentally challenged character.
Who's like the main murder case guy. Who's
exactly. It's
not suave, not a heartthrob, more of a just like...
Yeah, and
I don't even know how to put it.
I mean, he is potentially more mentally challenged than any character in any Bong Joon-ho film.
Which is saying something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about several Song Kang-ho characters in who is the main actor in Memories of Murder and the Host. Who seems to just naturally be able to play a slightly challenged individual. But we're talking about Won Bin, who is like a badass and the man from nowhere. He got his fame from this badass film. Women love him, and then he's kind of this. He's still good looking, but he's kind of he's mentally retarded. So
yeah, and he's basically kills someone, right?
Essentially, yes.
So
there's your spoiler. We just spoiled the shit out of the movie, so I hope you turned it off by now. But he kills someone on accident. Sort of, and it's a very, very complex scene. And I really recommend that. I mean, that's a fantastic scene just to see his kind of hesitation afterwards. And the thing I really like about it is it doesn't cut, and it just like lingers on him for 30 seconds, and you see him like flipping the phone open, and you can kind of see him lipping the words "jinte" and "mom," and then you kind of see him dial 3 digits, which would be the police. So you can just kind of imagine who he's trying to call at that moment before he ultimately decides that he is totally screwed.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I think that's a really, really cool scene right there.
Right. But back to your point, it does. You wouldn't expect to see this guy in that position. So that's how he's sort of like playing with the expectations of the audience.
Yeah, he's someone that just kind of blunders through the film.
Yeah.
And somehow makes it out just totally fine. Cool. So let's see. I'm glancing at my notes here. So we kind of talked about the audience expectation and genre. Genre, I think, plays a little bit less obvious role here than Memories of Murder or The Host, where they were very clearly working from the serial killer genre and the monster movie genre. So I think the audience expectation is definitely kind of more established through the casting of those two lead actors in this one. And so, moving along, the title is also an interesting talking point because the Korean word for mother is actually omoni or oma. Omoni is the slightly more formal version, but in this film they use the actual Korean title is ma-do, which is the phonetic English pronunciation of mother. And I think the other interesting part about this is that mother, ma-do, is very close to mother as well as murder. So it kind of has this dual meaning to Korean audiences, which I think a lot of people, especially in the Western world, don't realize.
Yeah. When you told me that before the movie, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
I wonder if there's going to be any death in this movie, and lo and behold.
Indeed. And so, I mean, I think just, like, tons of, like, what makes a Bong Joon-ho film unique and great is just kind of, like, the little details that he kind of focuses on. And I jotted a couple of these down when I watched the film, and I think one of the coolest ones at the beginning was just, like, where he's peeing, and then he kind of makes it this really awkward scene between his mom, because his mom just like comes over and just like looks, and then she like straight at his crotch, and it's like
while he's peeing, obviously looking at his dong,
and he just keeps peeing.
And then she starts to give him the medicine. And
yeah, it's just like an outrageously absurd scene.
And like, yeah, what is that? What is that? And then the story just keeps going along.
Yeah.
And it's like...
I just really like these kind of like enriching details that you could argue are unnecessary, but are obviously very, very well thought out. And a lot of these details kind of come back to play into the story. This one in particular was more just to kind of establish mood, atmosphere, and character. But I just think they're really, really cool. And so, like, even on scenes like the interrogation, or, no, I'm sorry, the investigation, where they kind of go to the murder scene for the first time, you'll see that the junior detective gives the senior detective the kind of herbal drink that the mom was passing out from the previous day when her son was arrested. So it's just like lots of little touches like that, which are really cool to realize and just make you feel really good when you notice them. You're like, yeah, I may have seen this film 6 times, but I recognize that detail. And I mean, this, like, another one was the sex scene where they played that word game, and I remember you commented.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were just saying weird words like...
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Tiramisu.
Yeah, tiramisu. What was the one after that?
I'm not even sure.
Anyway, they're just saying words during sex, and I was like, what are they saying? Why are they saying it? And James was telling me it's like a game, some sort of game where like the last syllable of the word, I say a word, the last syllable of it, you have to start a word with that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Except during this whole thing, they're also, of course, having intercourse. So.
Yeah, and I was just like, what? What is...
So
what does this mean?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of a really funny detail.
I wonder if he's done that before.
The other detail that I kind of noted, and this one's a little bit more substantial, is that like after the mother kind of does that big climactic scene where she realizes her son is the killer, and she kills the junk collector.
That was intense.
Yeah, and she like kind of has a breakdown. And you'll see that she's adopting her son's mannerisms. She's like calling out for her mom.
Yeah.
And then she's kind of like wiping her face, and she's doing kind of this
similar
weird
to like
gesture.
his meditation thing.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that one's a little bit more obvious, but I just think that's a really, really cool little detail. And he really took his time after she killed the junk collector just to meditate on the thing that she just did, and she like burns the house down very slowly, and I thought that was a really cool shot too.
Yeah, that was a sweet shot.
Yeah.
Just like lighting things in the room and on fire.
Yeah. Almost lackadaisically too.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, is she even gonna get out?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then we eventually see her just like wander through the woods, and we see her climb up those branches, and then she just sits down in a tree, and I really like that.
Yeah.
And yep. I just really like that whole sequence in general, and it just really gives the audience as well as her a chance to just absorb what the hell just happened.
Yeah,
and
seriously.
I think it's definitely probably the most jarring thing that we've seen in a Bong Joon-ho film.
Yeah, I didn't even know what to think.
Yeah.
I was very surprised.
Yeah, I actually saw this film a couple of years ago in a theater full of old people because I, for some reason, went to a screening in the University District in Seattle where they had like a senior special or something at 7:30 on Tuesdays. And I can tell you that those old people were shocked at that scene.
Dude, I bet.
So, just a funny story for you guys out there. So I mean, throughout Bong Joon-ho's films, you'll see that misrecognition and coincidence really, really play kind of a heavy role. And Zach referenced earlier that the plot is just so tightly constructed and heavily detailed that like it's got to be a major challenge for the editors and stuff, because if you take away one element, all of a sudden your transitions are off, it doesn't flow properly, and like the plot doesn't even make sense just because it's so detailed.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind just right off the bat is the nosebleed scene.
Yeah.
Where it's like flashback for somebody, for the
dead girl.
For the like the camera lady.
Yeah.
Who's developing all the film, and you see that nosebleed moment, and like, I didn't think really anything of it. I was just like, oh my god, her nose is bleeding. But then later, you find out that
Crazy JP.
the crazy JP had blood on his shirt, and he said it was a nosebleed, but the cops were just like, oh, he thought of that really quick.
Yeah.
That guy's
He's like full of shit.
He's full
but
of shit.
Because of our experiences in the film, we know he's not kidding at all.
Right.
This girl has tons of nosebleeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we wouldn't be able to have that. Like, he doesn't really necessarily, like, in the nosebleed moment, you don't really think, like, oh my god, this is going to be a super major plot detail. But, like, if that didn't happen, the movie wouldn't be what it was. You know?
It's just like one more detail, and that detail actually really significantly impacts kind of the audience's perception of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, without a shadow of doubt, this other thing is really contributing to us knowing that Do-jun is the actual murderer.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really, really good one to bring up. And one thing that I thought was really interesting about the actual killing that Do-jun does of, I think her name was Hye-ja, is that kind of for both parties, they have this really sensitive subject for them. For Do-jun, it's kind of being slightly mentally challenged, and the trigger word for him is babo, or retard. And so whenever you see that word called out, he like instantly is provoked. So in the scene at the beginning where they kind of have that confrontation with the professors, or in the jail cell, and just throughout the film you'll see that. And what you realize with this girl is that she is just really sensitive about kind of her prostituting herself to get rice for her grandma and for just to feed herself. Mm-hmm. And so when Do-jun mentions like, you don't like guys?
Yeah.
It like instantly triggers kind of this angry response from her, which leads to her throwing that rock, and and Do-jun is okay with it, and then she talks to him, and it's not until she uses that word babo that he retaliates, however advertently or inadvertently, towards her.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And so I thought that was just a really cool detail that kind of puts these two characters as equals, even though one of them kills the other one.
Yeah. For me, it even kills me even further. Well, it doesn't kill me, but like, the fact that his mom was the one that instilled that reaction when she was like, if somebody calls you retard, you hit them, or whatever. Like, if they hit you once, you hit them twice.
Yep.
That type of thing. So it was almost like that. I mean, you could clearly see that is how he sort of got that way. And it's just... It's like almost like a meta character flaw in her teaching that to him, that she even had to go through all this.
Yeah.
Because if she didn't teach that to him, and she just told him to be like a nice person or whatever, it would have never happened.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and like that responsibility that she feels for kind of his mental makeup is really, really important throughout the film, and just really affects the character psychology. One really other just kind of interesting detail about that scene where Do-jun kills Ah-jung is that you'll see the old man there, and I think a lot of people will pick up on this, but you'll see him with the rice, and she of course is the rice cake girl. So this old man is, I mean, he's not as innocent as might seem. He's paying for sex with this underage girl that he's much, much older than. So that should also affect the kind of...
Oh, he did have rice with him.
Yes.
So they were...
So that was no coincidence.
Because he did lay out that mat, like...
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe she was meeting him, probably.
I think that's definitely kind of the implication there.
Wow.
So it kind of just adds a layer upon layer, and I mean that's kind of just the real wonderfulness of a Bong Joon-ho film. It's just like these details that you can just figure out later on. And so I mean, I love the film in general, and like it's a film that continues to grow on me. And it's really interesting because like the plot is actually completely ridiculous and absurd, but when you're watching the film, it doesn't necessarily feel like that. He just does a really good job of kind of like absorbing you in the film, and just like taking you to its own reality.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
He just everything. Like, I don't know. Back to the nosebleed thing. If he would have said like, it's just so much more believable because we saw that scene, and he's just so good at that. Like, we saw her with the nosebleed, then, oh, Like it just he can just he has you thinking about something else kind of but the plot just kind of goes along as it is. So I'm not like questioning the plot. I'm like, oh my god, what does that mean? I saw that earlier. There were implications about this. I'm not really questioning like, oh, they're just gonna just take nosebleed evidence or whatever and just it's suddenly switched. Like suddenly he's free and everything's fine. Like I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking, oh my god, what's the mother gonna do? What's like her choice? I'm thinking more about the characters, less about the plot almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's good at that. I would say.
He definitely is, and like, I mean, he just rewards like his films can be appreciated on a level like, let's say I didn't notice that nosebleed detail the first time around. I could still probably enjoy the film a fair amount, but he definitely does not beat you in the head with that nosebleed. Like when they say, "Oh, she had a nosebleed," it didn't like do a flashback cut like
like they could.
It doesn't beat your head in kind of these details at all. They just kind of happen.
It almost like he allows you to see what you want to see almost.
And so I think that really allows for more intelligence in film viewing, and it really rewards audiences that are more attentive and paying attention to those sorts of things. And so I always like to feel smart. So good job, Bong Joon-ho. And I think there's a lot of cool references to Memories of Murder, specifically with the police investigation. The police investigation was such like a complete fuck up in a lot of ways. Like the forensics team was falling down that hill over and over again. Like the DNA evidence was all screwed up. Yeah. It was completely ridiculous. And like this scene, it's a complete afterthought. They're like, man, forensics teams are good. They watch CSI all day. And it kind of like alludes to like how far Korea has come in the past 25, 26 years, which is absolutely true. I mean, as a country, Korea is very much developed in that kind of time span.
Yeah.
And like the torture in this film is just weird and random. The apple torture, it doesn't really make sense. It's just kind of confusing and goofy. Whereas in Memories of Murder, we have this guy that has like a little wrapper that he puts over his foot and he just kicks the shit out of people. Oh yeah, that guy. So I think that's pretty cool too. So I think we're about ready to wrap up. So any closing thoughts?
Thought it was a good movie. This was my first time seeing it just a couple minutes ago. Finished up, and I'll probably watch it again. Let's be real.
Yeah, I would definitely concur with that. I've seen it 5 times now, and I'll probably watch it again too. So it's just a really good movie. Good to watch with friends. It's not overly artistic, and like we've said, it can be appreciated on a number of levels. It will really reward the multiple viewings. And I'd just like to give a shout out to the kind of wonderful closing and opening segments. The closing shot in particular, where the bus is going and it's kind of like a shaky cam, and then like it references the acupuncture, and it just like has that music playing and like the sun is coming through.
Yeah.
Just one of the best shots I've seen in a Bong Joon-ho film, and one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of just feel what she's going through that shot.
Yeah. And I mean that shot always is the most emotional part for me. And like the opening shot too, it kind of really draws that kind of that parallel in between the two shots at the end. So thanks for watching, guys, and please check out the rest of my film reviews and all kinds of stuff about Bong Joon-ho, which we'll be releasing. We're going to do a kind of a bigger talk about just all of his films in general sometime next week probably. So I'm really looking forward to that because I think he's a fantastic director, and he's one of my favorite Korean directors. So please check out www.flying-guillotine.com. Thank you.